Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Nick Kataev. I'm Senior Development Director with Confluent Development. I've been with NAIOP Colorado for 11 years. It's my pleasure to be up in front of you. You're all probably sick of hearing from me. I've been Programs Chair for 2 years, and it's been a blast to lead these events for the last 2 calendar years. And it's been my honor to try to provide insightful programming for everybody, educational opportunities, policy initiative updates, things like that, and networking opportunities. So next year we're going to try to inject more networking. Coffee's going to last a little bit longer, things like that. But it's been a blast. Thank you for allowing me to serve in this position, and I'm thrilled to hand it off to some very capable hands for the next calendar year. We're thrilled to present this year's Metro Mayors Forum, where we'll hear insights from some of Colorado's most influential leaders. Thank you very much, Mayor Coffman, for being here. Thank you very much, Mayor Arndt, for being here. And thank you very much, Mayor Johnston, who is walking in, I hope. We are going to introduce our Metro Mayors Forum now, and I'd like to invite up to the stage Mayor Mike Coffman with Aurora. Thanks, Mike. Mayor Jeni Arndt of Fort Collins. And Mayor Mike Johnston of Denver. And I'd like to introduce our moderator, Carlson with Evergreen Development.
All right, thank you all for being here. I want to once again thank our mayors for being here. This is a big deal. You know, we were really lucky to have 3 of the largest cities in our state represented today. And you know, these are 3 individuals who sacrificed their time, talents, and energies to serve us. And it's a big deal. It is not all glory and cotton candy and unicorns in their offices. It's a lot of... That is true. A lot of challenge, and actually I had the chance to do some Google research as what's been going on with each of these 3s in the news. It's been actually pretty interesting. You know, Mayor Coffman, you had your State of the City address, which we'll talk about some of that content today, which I'm super excited. Let's see, you also had, our new president visit, which was exciting for you.
I could have done without that one.
Yeah, you've been combating some real news and fake news on some crime issues, which is exciting for you. You have some slumlords, a few in town that you're trying to deal with. And actually, I just found out last night, you also have some excitement on your city council. You have a city council member who's retiring, and also another one that likes to send colorful text messages. So
very colorful.
Lots of exciting things in Aurora, some of which you're probably not loving. You know, things are a little bit calmer up in Fort Collins. Jeni, I know you had a controversial vote on the rescue mission site recently, which was challenging. You're trying to figure out what to do with the airport, with your neighbor city to the south. And this was a first. I read about a public hearing earlier this year where you had some protesters glue their hands to the wall of the city council chambers. I mean, that's a first. I don't know. I've seen a lot of things, but never glue to a wall. So
skin just rips off when you pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's.
I can tell you how we took them out.
That's exciting. And Mayor Johnston, you can't help yourself. You're always in the news.
I was getting very nervous as we were going down the chain what the Google was going to be.
Yeah, more exciting. You did spill the tea on Reddit, which is kind of cool. I mean, I don't have met mayors have been on Reddit, which is fun. Obviously, some victories last week and some setbacks, you know, at the ballot. You also received an affordable housing award, which is pretty cool.
Thank you.
It was neat to see that. And you know, the biggest surprise for me was the reporting by, I think, CBS News of your rental car heist over the summer. You know, obviously you're not very good at it, but if you didn't catch that article, it's kind of a fun one. You know, had some drama with Hertz rental car.
They shut down the rental car place before we were supposed to pick up the rental cars. So it was like 40 of us all stuck with no rental cars. So we thought we were supposed to just pick up the rental cars with the keys in the lot, which was apparently not Hertz's strategy, but we didn't know that until 20 of us had already picked up cars and driven away. And so that was the scenario.
Hey, there's lots of service providers going to an a la carte serve yourself model.
Right?
It's just like
That's
doing
what I
checkout
thought.
at King Soopers, you know, just check your own bags, you just check out your own car.
I drove mine back. I'm not sure the other 20 folks, but
Yeah.
I returned mine very quickly.
Well, we've got some fun questions today for each of our mayors, but I did bring in a special guest, a hard-hitting investigative journalist who is a student at Cherry Creek High School, my daughter Tally, to ask her our lead-off question. So Tally, come on up. She's her first questions for the day. Should be just on.
Hi. Okay. Hi. Johnston, how many times did you have to practice the DIA train announcements, and did you write it yourself?
It's a good question. A number, but normally I rewrite them because they'll bring me a draft and then I'll try to make it a little spicier. And so I have a new strategy where I want to drop like an Easter egg into each little announcement. So the next one will have a trivia question like, name the last city in America to have a reigning NHL and NBA MVP in the same city at the same time. Denver is, of course, the only one in this century. So I try to make it a little more interesting, and there's nothing worse than being on the train and having to listen to your own voice. It's like, it is the most cringe moment of all. And my kids hate it the most, as you can imagine.
Okay, Coffman, which fast food restaurant by your office is your favorite, and what do you order? Out of Raising Cane's, Chick-fil-A, or In-N-Out?
Tough one.
Ouch, none of the above. But Aurora is the home to the most incredible, I think, array of ethnic restaurants, and so I try and stay away from the chains. So I'm not a good answer for you, but get me in political trouble, I think, if I did.
That's the right answer from your cardiologist, I'll tell you that much.
I'm Chick-fil-A spicy chicken sandwich in his neighborhood, but that's also my neighborhood.
Arndt, what do you like most about being mayor, and what do your kids think about your job?
Oh, what do I like most about being mayor? Honestly, I love people. I was a special ed teacher by profession. I like the ones who struggle and need help. I like the people who don't need help, who are, I find people, human beings, endlessly fascinating as we do our public policy process. My children are all grown and gone, and I think they think it's hopelessly hokey that I'm mayor of my hometown. But that's what family's for, they keep you humble.
That's right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Tally. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'd also like to say for the record, these are probably the most awkward interviewing chairs I've ever sat in.
Yeah,
Because
I know.
I feel like a kid if you sit all the way back.
yeah,
it's like
all the way back
What about me?
in lazy boy mode, or
otherwise
you're
it's-
practicing your posture. Okay, so I think our first topic of conversation today is affordable housing. Mayor Johnston, you ran a ballot initiative on it, but it is a topic near and dear to all of our hearts, not only for ourselves, but for our kids. And it's a struggle, that frankly government and the private sector haven't been able to solve, or else we wouldn't be in the position where we're at today, which is, our top cities are the most expensive non-coastal housing markets across the country, which is crazy. So I'd like each one of you, just in turn, start with you, Mayor Coffman, as to what you're doing to increase the supply of housing. There's a lot of demand side tools I think governments tend to lean towards, but ultimately we have a supply-demand imbalance overall, and it's been going on for a long time. So what's happening in Aurora to help foster increased housing supply?
Well, I think we're very fortunate in Aurora that we have tremendous demand in terms of developers and home builders that want to build in our city. So that part is not the problem. The fundamental problem is that what the trial lawyers and legislature has done to us in terms of construction defects. I mean, where we don't have that entry-level housing product, that condominium, that townhome that they can buy. And so they're relegated to renting as opposed to having a 30-year fixed mortgage with the rents going up every year. And so it's difficult for them to get the savings together to buy a product that's more expensive than they would otherwise like. And so I think that's probably the greatest challenge that we have in terms of, we're very committed in terms of increasing our the inventory of affordable housing, and so I think it was Proposition 123, was that what it was?
Yeah.
And so thank you, Mike Johnston, for that. We are committed to that 3% year over year in terms of increasing our affordable workforce housing products. So, and we are on track as far as doing that.
Great. Mayor Arndt, what's happening up in Fort Collins on the supply side?
Oh, so many things. Just to set the stage, everyone's like, oh, you're booming, you're booming. The real fact is Fort Collins did not grow last year, first time in our 150 year. And that's a real indication that we need to look internally in the city of Fort Collins and what are we doing? I think I have some ideas. They're not popular in my city, but they are what I would consider the right things to do. So we have Windsor, Loveland, all the surrounding areas, Timnath growing, booming, right? And Fort Collins is stagnant. We'll be closing schools, those sorts of things. That's not the city that I grew up in or that I want to be mayor of. So we also ran a property tax initiative for affordable housing 2 years ago, and it failed. But our sales tax proposal for increasing recreation and those sorts of things passed. So that's an interesting thing. People say affordable housing, and then it comes to the ballot, and they go, yeah, you know, there's other things, which is fine. We're listening. You may have followed or may not have followed our very public and long discussion over our zoning reform that would allow more density and those sorts of things, passed, repealed by the voters, or repealed, sufficient petition to force a repeal, re-revise, pass again, sufficient signatures to force a repeal again. So I was officially neutral because I need to stay out of these things, but I'm not sad about the state preemption because I kind of feel like Fort Collins is the poster child of why you can't get some of these reforms done politically. So the state came in with their reforms, and that's helped a lot. Then the U+2, you know, Fort Collins just said you could only be 2 people, yourself plus 2 others. And that's a college town. We have 35,000 college students, and we're saying you plus 2 roommates. That has now been lifted. But Fort Collins politically, I was always in favor of lifting that, and that was sort of the third rail. So I could go on about other things that Fort Collins has done structurally to create a place where everywhere else around us is growing and we're stagnant.
Yeah.
Not, in my view, where we want to be.
That's an interesting comment because, you know, the standard feedback from a mayor is that the state should stay out of our business,
Correct.
Local land use control. But I guess in your situation, because you are in a fairly developmentally challenged political environment, it might be helpful to have the state override potentially some
Maybe.
NIMBYism.
Now that's enough, Governor. That's fine.
That's right.
Now no more preemption.
That's right.
I
Interesting.
say it to his face. We're done.
All right, so Mayor Johnston, I mean, affordable housing, you've campaigned on it for months.
Yes.
And so where are we at with that in Denver?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. I think this is the most significant economic challenge we're going to face on growth in the city. To give you a context of the scenario we're in right now. So right now, among the top 50 cities in America where people under age 30 want to move, Denver is number 2. My dad used to say the only thing worse than being hated is being loved, right? Which is like, that means we have massive demand and this is a supply problem and we have to solve the supply problem. But here's what happens is we know what's happened to cities that have boomed before us and not solved this problem. Look at San Francisco, right? Right now, Denver has the highest increase of housing costs of any city in America of all our comparable cities. Going up faster than San Francisco, New York, LA, Chicago, Austin, all of them. And what happens when your costs go up and you don't keep up with supply is eventually you bust, right? So now population is declining in San Francisco. It is described as the childless city because it has the smallest percentage of children per capita of any city in America, period, full stop. So if you're raising a family, you could not afford to raise one there. And so that's what happens if you sort of pull up the ladder after you get up there and say, build no more housing. And here's the biggest risk. If you do not find a way to solve this problem with the market as your partner, you end up over-regulating the market and killing it, right? And so what progressive cities often do is say, oh, let's do rent control, or oh, let's do more and more mandates on developers, which means they just don't want to build in your city anymore. And so for us, the key is you have to have a solution that actually works with the market and makes it an easier place to build. That's why we think you got to bring resources to the deal. What we know is cost of land is high in Denver, cost of labor is high, cost of materials is high. The one thing you can control is cost of capital. If we can help provide you equity investments with a 1% return versus a 20% return expectation, that alone drops the cost of a rental unit by $400 to $800 per month per unit without additional public subsidy. So what we wanted to do with our proposal was to say, bring dollars to the table as an equity or a debt investor to make deals pencil so more deals move more quickly. Jeni's right. I think the challenge is everyone wants affordable housing. They're just not sure where they want it, if they want it in their neighborhood, and so that makes them wonder before they vote on an issue that is 90% of Denver, I'd say this is the most important issue. 49% voted for it last week. And so that is the gap we have to close, because the challenge is if we don't resource it, what we will get is either less affordable housing, more mandates, and or more rent control type policies that will make it harder to be an operator. We're not going to do that. We're an unabashedly pro-business, pro-growth city. But to do that, we have to keep up with demand around housing stock. And so I think for us, that's looking at ways to be able to incentivize developers to want to build here and to move away from the model of your grandfather's affordable housing. This is not Cabrini Green in Chicago. This is not 100% affordable units with all folks living below the poverty line. This is 100 unit developments where 70 of those units are market and 30 of those units are subsidized by us. They all have the same beautiful finishes. You can't tell the difference when you walk in the door from the unit that the doctor is living in unsubsidized and the unit that the nurse is living in subsidized. That's the vision for how you do this well, but it means you got to do it with the private sector, and that's what we're going to try to do in Denver.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you all. And Mayor Coffman, I'm especially happy to hear about construction defects. That at the State House is a big issue for us. We passed a fix-it bill a couple of years ago that didn't quite fix it. Otherwise, we'd have a plentiful amount of condos coming online. So we may need to solicit all of your mayoral help.
Tremendously
at the State
important.
House.
We're all in. Mayor Coffman and Mayor Jeni and I engaged last year. We'd love to do it again.
Yeah.
I know Mayor Arndt's engaged. We'd love to.
Absolutely.
Mayors are very clear on this.
Because that is entry-level housing.
It is.
Is single-family attached for-sale housing. Yeah. Well, let's go with the other thing that you guys can help control, which is the cost of new housing. Obviously, you can't control construction costs, but you control the regulations that, to varying degrees, dictate construction costs. So, what are you doing in your cities to help reduce the regulatory cost burden on new housing? And Jeni, I'll start with you up in Fort Collins.
Yeah, did you see me sigh?
Yeah.
So it's a long road, and there's lots of things that sound tangential but are really impactful, right? So we have a very low barrier to appeal. You can always be able to redress your government 100%, but we charge $100 to file an appeal. So if you have 5 neighbors who don't want the piece of private property developed that has been sitting vacant for 30 years, and you think it's a dog park, you use it as a dog park, someone comes in and says we're going to develop it, the process, people hear me talk like this in Fort Collins, it's really been weaponized, right? We've had more appeals in the last since I became mayor than ever in the history, right? So one person files an appeal, takes 3 or 4 months to grind through the system, we say no, council says no, the next person files an appeal, and so on. A lot of developers give up. I'd go build in Timoth. Well, why wouldn't you, right? So then the land sits vacant so that's one thing we're working on. We're also revising our appeals process. Who has standing to file an appeal, right? So those are sort of some I said in my opening comments, there's structural things we need to work on. We can't subsidize our way out of this problem, but what government can do when it can is just get out of the way. Time, as you know, I don't even want to say this to you, it's money, right? Of course. So if a process in Fort Collins, we have high standards, I've never heard one developer complain about our standards. It's our process, and it's the time, right? And then they know they're going to get an appeal. That makes it a very unappealing place to, frankly, do business, although Fort Collins is still a desirable place to live, work, play, and learn. So I'm working on those, and I'm meeting a lot of resistance. It was 6-1 when I said, why should, if you follow every rule that Fort Collins sets out for a development, why should you have to have a neighborhood meeting, right? You followed all the rules that your electeds have set in place, and it was 6-1. The councilor's like, you're crazy. I was like, well, okay. So I'm losing on those sorts of ideas, but I think eventually it's going to come. So we're working on those. But there's so many different things we can do. We're also doing, as Mayor Mike was saying, we can help with the cost of capital, right? Revolving loan fund for affordable housing. Just think about I always think about this. What's the appropriate role for government in the situation, right? right-size the government. What are we good at? We are using the power of the collective to get a lower interest rate. That is a very good role for government. Again, I don't think that just raising more money and subsidizing is part of it, but it won't solve all of it.
Yeah, great, thank you. Mayor Coffman, what's happening in Aurora in terms of regulation costs impacting development? What are you guys doing on your end?
Well, Aurora is a very business-friendly city. I want to say the most business-friendly city in the metro area. That we, in fact, I mean, predictability is so important. You know, in having a government, a bureaucracy that's responsive, that truly understands the needs of the business community, that's not compromising quality, but is moving through with predictability through the process. And I just think that's absolutely so important. And in turn, we have a community investment financing program where we help with the gap financing for entities doing affordable housing development with loans and grants. Obviously we do the same things that other entities do in terms of tax increment financing or waiving use tax initially. But I think that's the biggest thing is predictability of the planning and permitting process.
Mayor Johnston, when I moved to Denver 15 years ago, the city of Denver actually was probably the most development-friendly place to do business, and no offense, your prior administration drove it into the ditch from a process and a regulatory standpoint. So I think we were all in this room probably happy for your fresh approach. What are you doing? I know Manish is working hard on process, but there's a lot to unpack from, frankly, the prior 8 years.
Don't call it a comeback. We've been here for years, but we're ready. No, we are going to fight, Mike, for the most business-friendly title in the metro area. We're going to work hard.
Good luck. Ain't gonna happen.
So I think two things. One is cutting permitting time, and the second is cutting costs. And you have to do both of those dramatically. And the second one, I would talk about Energize Denver as part of that, because we know that is one of the major drivers of costs right now. And so first is permitting time. Like we know, as Jeni said, time is money, and the longer people wait, the more every project costs. We're just driving up the cost of both renters and small businesses. So we are looking at dramatically transforming that permitting process. I'll give you an example of that. We've this year reduced our permitting time by 30%. That was our goal this year, and we celebrated that for a minute, and I looked at the data and said, well, going from 2.5 years of wait to 2 years of wait is not exactly touchdown dance worthy. It's time to do far more dramatic overhauls. We're looking at now, what is the transformational strategy to how to blow the whole thing up and start over? And I'll give you an example. For restaurant permitting in this city, if you took a vacant restaurant in downtown that has been a restaurant for 5 years and you acquire it to also use it as a restaurant, that permitting to move from same use restaurant to restaurant in the same building in Denver took 18 months.
Yeah, we're aware.
Yeah.
The inmates have been running the asylum.
We just scrapped that, and we started a program this week we're piloting in downtown where that permitting process will now take 2 to 4 weeks. So that is the scale of change we're after, is how do we make it easy for you to build places that people love, not hard? And so I think we're looking for similar transformation on the residential and commercial construction timelines and permitting. And also that's not an 18-month blue ribbon commission. We'll have plans in January. Second one is Energize Denver, similar challenge. I am also a building owner, like many people in this room, that has to comply with that. We both share the goals and visions for climate progress. And on our city-owned portfolio alone, my tab for Energize Denver compliance as a city is $410 million just for our buildings. I do not have $410 million to pay that tab, like many folks in the room don't. And so we are also right now looking at a redesign of Energize Denver 2.0, which is how do we think about ways to both be thoughtful and aggressive about climate goals and to make sure we don't put people out of business in the process. And so we will also be getting feedback. Some of you in this room may be involved in some conversations we're hosting with both our economic development team, Adib, and Liz, our team from CASRA, on feedback you have on ways we can make this far more manageable. And so those two big changes on permitting and Energize Denver will be coming out Q1 25 with a plan to make that much, much easier.
Great, and I will say it has been a breath of fresh air from the industry side. The roadshow that your staff has been doing, meeting, engaging, trying to collect feedback, because there was not that process prior. And so I think we're very hopeful. So please continue in Denver. And I think you did a great segue to my next topic, so thank you. Going back to Mary Arndt, how do you balance sustainability goals with affordable housing and business retention? Because they can often be at conflict because they do drive costs or restrict property rights or ability of businesses to operate how they want to operate.
So we're in that nexus right now in Fort Collins. This is the rub. There's a little radio thing with me on there this morning going, eh. But just to make one point about the style of governance, right? So I'm mayor council, and so is Mayor Coffman. Mayor Mike is strong mayor, so he comes in with his own staff, right? And it's in our charter. I can't control staff. I just the attorney, the manager, and the lawyer report to council and mayor. So I can take till I'm blue in the face these things, but unless I can motivate our city manager to implement this, I can't reach down and start a new project. It's extremely, it's been a good form of governance for Fort Collins, and I'm not an advocate of changing it, but it is a frustration in terms of trying to get things done where you feel like you have a clear vision. We had a long meeting with someone the other day about our 1041 permits, and I don't want to say who it is in the city. When she gets done, she goes, oh, so you want us to try to design regulations that allow someone to get permitted, not to block them? Is that even a question? I mean, and I'm not able to give direction to this person. So our deputy says, Mayor Arndt, we have our rudder in the water, but it's 40 years of city culture we're trying to change. So you have to think of it like that. So about the sustainability goals, so where the building performance standards are all kind of the topic. And I said, great, any building over 10,000 square feet has to do it. I said, great, I'm not going to vote for it until the city goes first. And the city was like, what? Well, Mayor, we can't do that. I said, oh, tell me why. Well, it's really expensive and we're really not sure how to do it. I go, oh, I wonder how the private sector feels. I was like, I will not approve that until we lead by example. They go, but this hurts our budget. I'm like, really? Yes. So that we are right in after that work session, they didn't come back. They're still not on the calendar. They're like, ugh. I'm like, knock it off. How can you sit here and say that? Now, we need to attend to the climate, and buildings are a big part of that. How about this for an epiphany? We're going to shut down Rawhide. I'm on the I'm vice chair of our Power Authority Board. In 2030, we're going to be 90% clean with 10% aeroderivative supplementing, blah, blah, blah. Who cares if a building's leaking if it's run on clean energy? Think of it that way. What's the difference? From it, we think energy's bad because it's been coal-fired. But when it's no longer coal-fired, just wrap your mind around that, and the regulations that we're talking about citywide and statewide, we're also going to drive up costs because the people said tear down the house that you own, debt-free, and build a brand new one. So those capital investments are large, right? Wind, solar, batteries, DERs, virtual power plant, the whole bit. Aeroderivatives, supplementing. Just think of it that way. Then what are you going to do? You're going to be stuck with all these rules and regulations that really, and when the cost goes up, they're going to be incentivized to double pane their windows because it's cheaper. So these are some unpopular conversations I'm having now. But I think we really have to imagine the clean energy future in a different way. And once the majority of cars are electric vehicles, do we really care how many cars are on the street other than from a congestion standpoint? And they're powered by clean energy, not by coal. So let's just try to think in a little bit in the future and design regulations now that meet our children's future, not our past.
Great. And how are you balancing that in Aurora, Mayor Coffman?
Well, let me tell you what we're not doing. And what we're not doing is putting down a lot of costly mandates that have some political messaging value in terms of doing something where you're maybe accomplishing something on the margins, but you're adding an extraordinary cost to business, to growth. So I think two issues. I think one is certainly the way we develop is important, and I think transit-oriented development, we're really engaged in that, in building high-density, multi-use development right, by a light rail stop, I think is very positive in many ways, but certainly environmentally. But we lead on water conservation. And that is so important because the climate change is real. The issue is real, and we see it in terms of water policy. And so I've pushed forward a very aggressive agenda in terms of water conservation that says in new development, you can't have what they call cool weather turf, like Kentucky bluegrass, for ornamental purposes. It has to be functional. In other words, it's an athletic field. No new water features. No cool weather turf in the front yard or the side yard of a single family home. Limited to 500 square feet in the backyard or 45% of the yard, whatever's less. No, grass and trees and stuff in the medians. And then incentives to get people in businesses to change to xeriscape or this water-wise landscaping, and to convert our own spaces in that regard, our own parks and things. And so we're very aggressive in that regard, as well as recycling water. What goes down in the drain, we recycle, and we put it back to where we found it, and we have a water right to use it to extinction. And so I think that that allows us to grow, although we're certainly going to have to acquire new water rights, but allows us to grow. And we're devising ways to work with rural Colorado, with agriculture, and not to buy and dry up agricultural areas, but to work with them in terms of buying the water right, upgrading their systems, their irrigation systems, and then allowing them to continue farming, and we'll take the difference. And so I think there's so many things you can do, but I think the greatest question in Colorado is sustainability has got to be water.
Yeah. Well, we've got about 10 minutes left before we take audience Q&A, so please be thinking of your questions. But I want to end on a positive note, because we can only talk about problems for so long. You deal with that all day long. But what are you most excited about in your cities from an economic development standpoint? What are you trying to attract? What are you trying to do to reinvigorate? We'll start at the end, Mike, Brother Johnston. Brother Johnston. I love that. At the end. We're in church today. We're now on the pulpit preaching the gospel of economic development.
Amen. Can I get an amen from this room? I am actually delighted to talk about this. I think we are all in on a number of very big bets around economic revival in Denver. And I would say first is, yes, last week, and maybe it was less well known, we did pass a historic measure, which is the expansion of the Downtown Denver Development Authority. That will be the largest investment in downtown in the city's history, the largest investment per capita of any downtown in America in their city center. So in a moment where a lot of folks are thinking, oh, maybe downtown's a 20th century item, just walk away from it. We're actually all in on saying, no, this is a chance to revive the economic heart of the city, the cultural heart of the city, the arts and athletic heart of the city. And so this is $500 million we will use to both drive commercial to residential conversions in downtown. It helps us bring more residents and more neighborhood activation here, to attract and keep great vendors and retailers here, to add public spaces, parks, childcare, playgrounds, the things that make cities vibrant, and to focus on easy to access public transit. So that we are all in on that moment right now. And we are pushing, I think, on a broader focus on economic development around the city. One of the reasons why we focused on homelessness and public safety and affordability is they are the preconditions for economic recovery, right? I tell the story before of one of the reasons I decided to run for mayor was a woman who was a commercial realtor who was working with a CEO who was going to move her business to downtown, and she came to visit the building downtown and went to the 12th floor, looked at it, loved it, came back downstairs to leave, and the rental car she was in had been broken into while she was in the building. Like, we never closed that deal. Doesn't matter how good the pitch was. And so we had to manage those things first, which is why it was important to get 2,000 people off the street and into housing. It's why it's important to get 30% reduction in crime. It's why it's important to put 300 more officers back onto the street. But that is because it gives you the preconditions for more economic activity. We're really excited about the announcement on Ball Arena, which you know is both a 25-year extension of the Avs and the Nuggets. That's 50 more seasons of Avs and Nuggets downtown, which we're thrilled about. And it is going to bring massive commercial and residential development to our city center, which we think drives more density and more growth. And so we have a handful of other big projects of that scale we're going to announce in the next 6 months or so, but I think we will be making some historic, large bets and investments on commercial and residential development that will drive the next 30 years of this city that we think will take us to the next level in terms of being both one of the great economic drivers in the country and still a place where you can get up in the morning and drive an hour and a half to the best ski resort in the world, or go see a concert at the best concert venue in the world, or be able to eat at one of the 4 Michelin star restaurants in the city, or be able to live in a city that has 4 professional sports franchises all in their downtown. Like Denver has something no other city has. We just have to get the economic development right as part of that strategy, and we're all in to do that.
Well, we're all rooting for you. The last mayor to take on this much ambition was Federico Pena when I was a kid. So, and he changed our city for the better because of those ambitious
He's been my mentor the whole
goals.
time for just that reason. I think he dreamed big and swung big.
Yeah, very good. Mayor Coffman, what are you doing? What are you excited about? You got a lot of real estate in Aurora.
A lot of real estate. In fact, we have a landmass a little larger than Denver with a third of it undeveloped. And so we got room to grow. So come to Aurora. So I think that, the biggest economic development issue I'm focused on is the CU Anschutz Medical Campus. And, my father was a career soldier and finished his career in the medical corps. And so that's what brought us to Aurora, was Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center.
Really?
And when it closed in 1996, there were 3,000 total personnel there between military and civilians. Today, on the same ground, on the CU Anschutz Medical Campus, we have 32,000 employees, and we have 4,500 students in the CU different medical programs. And we have a lot of research. We can expand that research. And so I was just in Boston looking at two very successful medical research centers. Kendall Square, that's actually just outside of Boston in Cambridge. And Longwood Medical Area in Boston itself. Longwood Medical Area is on 230 acres, has 68,000 employees, and has 27,000 students, a lot of academic programs. And so I was there in really an enormous building of all labs, all research labs. And so the manager for the building, he goes, usually the research folks have 3 different access badges. One to get into this building and get in their lab space. The other one to go teach at the med school, Harvard Med School, as an associate professor, and then the other one to work on a research project. I mean, that's us. Only we have 577 acres. And so we have so much room to grow. So I'm chairman of the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community, which is a collaborative effort between the University of Colorado and the city of Aurora. And so we have the north side of the campus that is dedicated to bioscience research, and I sit as chair, and then the vice chair is the chancellor for the CU Anschutz Medical Center. And so, I had a meeting yesterday with the U.S. Army to move their Army Reserve Center off that area over to Buckley, moving everything off the campus that I don't think should be there to make room for bioscience. I think we can be a hub, a bioscience research hub for this country. And the economic impact is so extraordinary. We're already look on the south side of the campus from across Colfax and see all the redevelopment that has taken place there. I want to push, if I think there's already, this is an $11.5 billion local economic impact for this area from that campus. The base, which is very important to the city, the Space Force base, is $2.6 billion, to give you a reference point. But we've got so much room to grow. And it's so exciting, the prospects of that, in working with the hospitals and working with the university, to have that clinical, that academic, and that research side to it. And I believe that I can grow the campus, working with the university, to have that economic catalyst to push west and redevelop the Colfax corridor. Because I think the two are linked. I'm not going to have all the growth I want on campus if it's a war zone across the street. And so going west of Peoria. So I'm really excited about that, and I think incredible prospects.
Yeah, and it is a tough area. You know, my family owned property down there, and the cops would only go there if they had a buddy. I mean, literally, it's a tough part. So hats off to you and Mayor Johnston for trying to close that gap between downtown and Fitzsimmons. Mayor Arndt, I'm glad you're here because we don't hear as much about Fort Collins. This is a very Denver-centric, place.
That's okay.
And so, what's going on up in northern Colorado and specifically Fort Collins that you're really excited about?
Thanks for that question. There's a lot to be excited about, actually. As you know, we have a major Colorado State University plunked down in the middle of our city, our largest employer, and really, honestly, the heart of Fort Collins, the vibrancy of 35,000 students and all the excitement. I intentionally bought a house right near the university because I don't mind a couple beer cans on my lawn, but I just love the excitement. I like the people, all that. So they've been successful in attracting a brand new laser facility. And that's really great. So Fort Collins can't take any credit for that, but I just want to tell you what's happening in our city that maybe we're not. But Colorado, I also give Colorado State a big shout out, just as a really great partner. President Parsons and I have a great relationship, and that's very meaningful, and it matters, okay? The other thing that's happening, and I had to bring my little notes because I always say the word wrong, I know about the Innosphere is our regional business incubator, was awarded $160 million in a National Science Foundation grant to locate a multi-state, multi-institution effort, headquartered in Fort Collins, focusing on bringing in businesses that have to do with clean energy economy. So Fort Collins is known for our sort of climate-wise clean energy thing, but pairing that with business and the businesses that are attracted to locate in a city like Fort Collins is very, very exciting. And since it's multi-state with Wyoming, and so Fort Collins, as I mentioned, we're going to be at build out not too distant future. So really, the other thing that's exciting is this commitment to regionalism, right? We're going to have to look, Mayor Coffman and I looked up, I said, where's 50 square miles? How many are you? Triple.
I think we were 165.
Yeah, triple us. So the better analogy to Fort Collins and Aurora is actually northern Colorado region to Aurora or Denver. And that's really the space we're working in, although I will say that's hard for Fort Collins because we're used to kind of be the big dog. And I'm like, we're not the big dog, you guys. This is a group effort. And then just to touch on, I'm the chair of our little regional airport, FNL.
I was going to ask you about that because
yeah,
that's big decisions to make there.
I just call it FNL. I don't even know, the Northern Colorado Regional Airport. FNL is exciting. We have agreed with Loveland, and we're really moving toward a more professionalized model of governance there. I mean, I don't know anything about airports. I don't know. Should we ride in the runway? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. So we're going to probably, hopefully, go to an airport authority. So turn it back into itself, make an authority, it can run itself, it'll be revenue neutral. Then everything doesn't, back to process, have to go through 2 city councils, come back. It takes forever to get anything done at the airport. The 2 councils historically have had different visions of what the future should look like. Let's make it an authority and let it run itself and professionalize it. And that could be a real economic driver. As either a central transit hub for a region, I'd like to attract aeronautic type businesses out there. We have land. Right? And Greeley Airport is really looking at a lot of commercial aircraft. So why wouldn't we complement them and not compete? And when I said that to Greeley, their jaw just dropped. They're like, did you say that? I go, yeah, why don't we complement each other? So those sorts of attitudes where you see that the sum is bigger than the individual is productive.
Great. Well, thank you. Well, we're going to open it up to questions for you. And so think about that. You can raise your hand, stand up, we'll get you a mic. If you have a question for my brother Johnston, please front load that. He has a hot yoga appointment to run to, so he'll be leaving in about 5. Yeah, please, go ahead.
First, thank you for all being here this morning. I'm sure as mayors, you're typically having people come to you seeking help or looking to you for answers, but I guess what can the commercial real estate industry and development community do to support your goals and agendas?
All right, what can the commercial real estate industry do to support your goals? And Mayor Johnston, we'll start with you.
I love that question. Thank you so much. I think the biggest one is honestly to be ambassadors for the economic revival of the city. I think what we see is the dramatic changes on the ground of how a lot of people say, gosh, I don't go to downtown anymore. I was like, when did you come down last time? They're like, 2020. Like, okay, well, it's kind of a different world than then. And so I think the ability for you to be ambassadors for this is a moment to bet on Denver, like we think actually this is the time to be able to bring a business back, to stay, to buy property, to invest. We think that coming from folks who are doing the business, running their own industries is more reputable than whatever we're going to say to make that case. And so I think that's really important. I do think we want you to be partners on how we think about how to solve affordable housing without a big new public investment, how to think about how we're partners in that in a way that doesn't regulate the industries but does empower them. And I think the other one, to your earlier point, is I think we want to see ourselves as partners in helping you be successful. I know that hasn't always been the experience, but to know now if something is not working or it seems unreasonable or incredibly difficult, you should assume I'm not doing that on purpose, and we want to fix that thing. And so your ability as a friendly critic to say, you know what, here's our experience of what it's like to do business with the city, we should do this instead. Reach out to us early and often because we want to fix those things and make your life easier here, not harder.
Yeah, and I will say, I emailed Manish about a development, time-sensitive issue. He responded within 24 hours.
Good.
I mean, to get that kind of responsivity from the head of a massive department is, I think, is a huge culture change. So
That's what
I would
we're
agree.
after. Get to yes.
Any other mayors want to answer that question before we go to the next one?
Well, I think be active in NAIOP. I mean, that's a help, and the advocacy work you do, I think is very helpful. But I also think when you're working on projects in my city, and if you don't think that there's something that's occurring that's reasonable, then let me know, and I'll try and I'll troubleshoot it.
Careful what you ask for.
But it better be.
And his email address is?
Okay. Better be big, better be important. No, and so, I want to make sure that the process is working effectively. And so, but whatever you can do to help on this construction defects thing in the coming legislative session, I mean, that's the kind of help we need. And to keep these mandates, these costly mandates that really the biggest effect in just is raising the cost of doing business in our state at the legislative level. Any help you can give there. As a recovering member of Congress, it's probably hopeless in that area, but I appreciate your involvement there as well.
Well, I think you've come out of rehab okay from Congress. You're doing all
A lot
right.
of therapy.
Yeah. Mayor Arndt would like to answer?
Just echo, let us know. Like, I don't know what I don't know. And then show up, right? It matters when you show up. It matters if you can call me. Like, I will give you my cell phone number. Like, oh my God, this was just our experience. I'm like, no, we're not doing it. And as Mike just said, that is not our intent. It's not my intention, and we can try to fix it. So when you see a problem, let us know. And we really do want to help you. And then I like what Mayor Coffman, be active at the legislature. I'm fresh out of there, so we all three served there. Yeah. And it's not the place it was when I left. And we have to oppose a lot of bills that will hurt us.
Yeah, great. Other questions from the audience? Yes.
Building on what Mayor Johnston said, how do we become good teammates for you guys? A lot of the regulation, like Green Roof Initiative, affordability, Energize Denver, and new EV chargers, as you guys discussed earlier, they're huge impacts to new construction, existing buildings, et cetera. A lot of that comes from city council directives. I think most of us in the room want sustainability and obviously have resiliency and those sorts of things. But without the downstream kind of thought process of what does it mean for building code, what does it mean for review, what does it mean for Xcel Energy? Like when we get a call, as you know, Mayor, we and partners own 23 acres downtown. I'm getting calls from Xcel Energy about basically contributing to local micro sort of energy stations in our neighborhood because they don't have capacity. So those things are huge impacts because no one's talking from the goals, the higher goals, down to the reality on the ground. How do we become good teammates for you guys to not make that happen? Because I think the goals are right, but the process and how we get there are more penalizing instead of incentivizing.
Yeah. It's a great point. And I think what I love about this job is it's where the ideological becomes practical, right? So like we can all agree that you want to help prevent climate change. But you also look at what impact does that have on a day-to-day business in the city right now operating in Denver. And I think these jobs force us to do that and force you to do that. And so I think step one is just in the same way, how do we look at what those implications are and how do we identify them and source them. I think we have, among all things, I think, tried to build an entrepreneurial mindset on our team, which is people who are expected, who have built things in the past and want to help people build things. And so how do we build that culture of yes? And so I think this is where we want to be partners on how do we take out the things that are not working. We have a stop doing list, which I do with our cabinet every year, because every year, every city council member and every mayor comes up with a great new idea. And a lot of my ideas are not great, it turns out. And so it's good to know 5 years later that someone should take that away as opposed to keep it. And we got 50 years of those that have built up. So we do with the cabinet every year, a look at your departments, look at your divisions, look at the regulations. If there's anything that fundamentally doesn't protect life, health, or safety that we are still requiring people to do, let's stop doing that. And so your ability to source that stop doing list for us also helps, because you can't hold all values equally. Otherwise, it means you're paralyzed from doing anything. And so one of our values has to be speed and has to be cost. And then others have to fit in around health and safety and climate protection. And so I think we're going to try to look at all that we can do on the stop doing list to make that easier. And I would say, this is an example, I love Jenny's point about like we should do it first. So we'd love to get to, say, 100% renewable fleet in this city. We'd love to have everyone in the city drive an electric vehicle. Right now, I can't even electrify our own fleet because there is not enough electric infrastructure in the city to charge our 13,000 vehicles in the city on its own. So our first step is going to be electrify our entire fleet, which is going to require us to build infrastructure to do that and solve problems like a police car does not sit idle for 3 hours a day. You run a 10-hour shift and you hand the key to the next woman who runs into that car and keeps driving. There is no 3 hours of downtime to charge an electric police car, which is why you don't have fleets that do that. So they're pragmatic questions we have to solve in order for us to expect the city to solve it. The same is true with Excel, their load, the capacity to manage growth. If we're going to bring on 5,000 more affordable units a year, where do we get the energy supply to do that also? So we're going to try to be the builder shoulder to shoulder with you on what the infrastructure is required and how to build that infrastructure low cost.
Well, I just have a different view. I want to encourage Denver to keep going down the same path of these costly mandates. I'm all in. I am all in.
The state mandate will be the same. So there's a state energy compliance mandate coming that will be almost exactly the same. So no one is going to be out of this. We'll just learn first how to acclimate to it, but it's coming for you too, Mike, so don't worry.
Yeah. Actually, I think it does bring up a good question, because all of you can't get rid of your staff, nor do you want to. So you have people, but you're trying to change cultures. And I think, Mayor Arndt, you led to this. How do you change a culture of no, where people have been saying no for 25 years in Fort Collins, and now the results of 25 years of no are no growth? How do you change that? Because you can't change the human beings. So as a leader, what do you do to inspire that culture of yes and changing the philosophy behind what you're doing?
I mean, it's a long road. I don't know if I'm going to be successful, right? I mean, and Mayor, I'm term limited. I get 3 2-year terms. They make me run every 2 years, and then you're done after 6. So Fort Collins has also said we really don't want our mayor to, like, I was told when I got hired or elected by a prominent person in our city, we were looking for a very ceremonial type mayor. I go, well, the people sent you the wrong gal. So as long as I'm there, we're going to talk about these things. And to your point, when we educate council about the practical realities, the best thing about being mayor, in addition to people, is we do nothing in the theoretical. Everything we do, you have to actually do it. At the legislature, it's fun to pass bills. Oh, I passed 1 million of them. Oh my God. When you're mayor, you can pass an ordinance and you got to see it all the way through to the charging station where you're fleet, right? These examples. So, the thing you can also do is help. We had the local minimum wage proposal that came in strong, and I was a no. And with careful education of our council members, by our business community, to say the practical reality is the only one getting a raise here will be the tipped wage worker who's already taking home $45. Our busboy, our dishwasher's already making 22. You will only raise the tipped wage workers. And you will be the most, Denver's bigger than we are, and you guys did it, but we would be the most expensive city to do business in Northern Colorado, and the most expensive building to build. I'm like, well, you guys choose. What do you want Fort Collins to look like? So that was defeated, but it was the business community came in with very careful details on the practical reality of how it would hit home. No more student internships, no more this, that. So that also happened with our rental licensure program. We have registry. If you have a business and you have 6 rentals, you tell the city, fine, you pay $37 a year. But the idea that the city was going to physically inspect every single rental property when 43% of our housing stock's rental every 5 years, to me, I just thought it was the craziest thing in the world. And then I had to...
Brother Johnston's doing it.
Yeah, but
and,
anyway.
Mike, we'll let you go. You got hot
Yeah,
yoga,
so you
and I
gotta
want to
go.
get back to Mayor
I'm talking
Coffman about
tonight.
why Aurora is better than Denver. So
Yeah.
you want to step out.
Thank you all so much.
All right, bye, Mike.
Great to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, you too.
Appreciate it. Sorry to cut you, Jenny.
Oh,
but
no, you're fine.
I know he does have a schedule, so I want to be
no,
respectful.
no, it's fine. I was talking about, but I get a little bit passionate about these issues. So you just keep trying. I mean, the answer is, you keep trying and you keep educating about the practical realities of policies you pass and how it hits the person on the ground that you care about.
Yeah. And back to you, Mayor Coffman, I think one of your challenges, because of Aurora's growth, I mean, your staff gets bigger and bigger, and managing an efficient, large organization is difficult. To have that many bodies regulating that much property, that many businesses, and still have it be like a small town process? I mean, how do you do that with a kind of a growing staff in a growing city?
So we have a city manager, Jason Batchelor, who, and both of us have military backgrounds. His is Army, mine's Army Marine Corps. Army being an acronym for ain't ready for the Marines yet. But I think he, does an extraordinary job, and obviously I provide oversight for that. But the issue, the fundamental issue, as I hear it from stakeholders, is how are they treated in the process, particularly in your world, in the planning and permitting process in terms of development. And so, and I think it's going well. We have to increase the staffing of our police department. That's probably the greatest challenge that we have right now. But I think all in all, I'm very optimistic about the future of this city, despite the president's comments that I push back on.
Very good. Well, thank you. And do we have a final question from the audience? We do want to be respectful of our mayor's times. They do have cities to run, literally. Anybody else? All right, I'm sure they'll take an extra minute 30. So let's give a round of applause for all of our mayors.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Keep going.
Thanks again, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you, Jeni. Awesome.